Hello and welcome to Art, Creativity, and Wellbeing, the show where we are always working to support you in giving as much from your. How can I say that? I'm actually going to say that a different way. This is the show where we are always supporting you to receive as much love and care for yourself and into your heart as you give. Um, Yeah, that's what we're about here. And I'm Kay Locke Culp. I am a coach and a creator and a person whose life journey has really taken me to the point where I understand that for myself in a different way that it's good for the world and my loved ones and those I work with and me when I am receiving as much love and care as I give. It's really quite a lovely balance. Or balance might be the wrong word because I don't want it to be thought of as something that's going to tip out of balance. Although I will say, when things are out of balance, when this particular thing is out of balance, that's not a good situation. I live with a chronic illness because I did not understand how far out of alignment I was living with that. I used to need a wheelchair. Longtime listeners know this story pretty well, and perhaps it's worth sharing about it again. I think I would do that another day because today I have something I'm excited to bring, and I'm really, really glad you're here. So, this is part of a series of relatively short episodes, and perhaps some of them will be quite short. This might be one of them. Episodes that I'm bringing to you at the end of a transformational year and after a very transformational retreat time in Spain, in northern Spain, that I had the opportunity to do second half of October. So a couple weeks ago, if you're listening in real time, was when I got back. And it's been so interesting because the transformation that has happened has, I guess, eased into an acceptance or an understanding of like myself in this moment as a present, like, and aware of this moment, not being pulled into the past, not being anxious about the future, but instead sort of really being comfortable being here. And I didn't used to be able to do that. So, it feels good. And I think it's part of this idea of receiving care and love just as much as I give it out is there's this is often said the the uh being able to be present is like an incredible gift. That's why it's called the present. And especially I'm recording this in November, and especially now in November and into the end of the year, it can be really hard to find a moment of presence, even just one moment in a day or a week, because we feel like we've got so much to do. And so I used to think that there needed to be like big, grand plans and lists and things like that of how I was going to be present in the future, or like how I was going to be different in the future than I had been or felt like I was being. And I've learned that for myself that what lists do almost at all is have me feeling like I'm trying to talk myself out of doing whatever's on the list. And instead, what's really been helpful is to just take a moment as it comes and be here now and see what happens rather than try to predict or play out what's going to happen in my mind, because that never is what actually happens, or it has not been for me ever what actually happened. And the serendipity of that is really cool. So I wish to bring you something today that I've been developing probably for maybe 5 or 6 months now, was when this first came into my mind. And I wish to share it with you as a tool that you can have in your toolbox in these coming weeks when you're spending time with people, when you're maybe not at your most rested or best, and when they're not either, whether it's children or or adults or coworkers or relatives or friends or people that you meet in a store that you kind of come across somebody who cuts you off or whatever as you're driving. The tools these two they're two laws. They're universal laws that I have been playing with. And I invite them to be used as really just a tool for noticing because I think that's where a lot of good information comes when we can kind of observe and go, oh, maybe that's what's happening here, and be curious about it instead of making judgments about it. Uh, and I think I'm really excited to share these because something you may not have known about me is that my work, so for how many years now? 30 something years, I've been a coach and an educator. The roots of that are with early childhood education or early with not even education, with very young children. My bachelor's degree, my undergrad is in human development and family relations. A wonderful degree offered through this at the University of Connecticut, which is where I went to college. There's a school there called the School of Family Studies. And I've been so interested because in the world of early childhood development, the word family has kind of come back around. I think I don't remember the exact word. I feel like it's used in maybe family systems. It's used in a bit of a different way now in psychology, but it's like exactly the same thing. It's just different words, and the word family is back in there. So I learned all about as an undergrad the the kind of to really look at a on a higher level at at our life cycles, from pre-birth to through death, basically, adolescence, adulthood, and sort of as we age. Um, I learned some really different and useful ways to understand human behavior based on I think in those times I would have said it as based on where somebody is at in life. Um, I think that it's in a very good way. It's more complex than that. I think people try to share useful things, and they're nuanced, and sometimes the nuances don't show up, right? Uh, and so anyway, that was how I spent my undergrad was just learning about human behavior, human development. Uh, and then when I went for my master's degree, it was in what was called early childhood education. I can remember I came out of that with a teaching license in Massachusetts that was good from ages 3 or from birth, I guess is really what it was for, through age 9. And I remember when my now 25-year-old turned 10, I was no longer teaching, but I was very nervous that like now I had a 10-year-old and it had gone beyond what I had learned about. I remember feeling like, oh God. And it's funny because the years after he turned 10, the years before he turned 10 were amazing. The years after he turned 10 were like even better. I mean, what fun to watch a human being blossom into a fully actualized adult. And I got to do that twice because I've got two kids with my own, and then I've gotten to do it with others in my life as well. And anyway, the thing that was really, really fun about my master's degree is I brought some concentrations to some focus to some different things that really matter to me. One of them was 0 to 3, meaning like when somebody's born, up until they're 3 years old, like there's so much development and growth that happens there that's totally discounted by our society. Like I remember having someone say when I used to be an early childhood educator, And at an open house, a back to school night one night, the dad of one of my students said, "What does this matter? He's not going to remember any of this. Like, why does what we're doing here matter? Why does what you're doing here matter?" And I remember being so upset at the time. I just felt like everything I'd learned was totally negated, like that it didn't matter at all because, in the big bad world of whatever grown-ups, none of this stuff was important. And I I think it's so interesting because like it's so important that it's forgotten about. It's like it's elemental. These what happens to us as children and how we're raised, the conditioning we receive, the expectations that people have of us, um, all those things play out over our lives in ways that we may not even be aware of. And it's the awareness that I think is so interesting. That piece of, am I aware of what's happening inside myself or not? Because I was 50 before I developed like any kind of awareness. And I just think that's really interesting that you can get to be half a century old before you have a better understanding of what's going on inside your own self. So anyway, partly it was 0 to 3, which meant understanding family dynamics really well, like, or at least getting an understanding of family dynamics. And I would say I did that. I was proud of how I approached that and did it even as while I was being educated. And then the other thing that I was fascinated with was linguistics and particularly the acquisition of language. I found it absolutely fascinating. And then I remember one time when I was in England, I had done this hike. I'd solo hiked across the coast to coast path in England, and that was such a magical trip. And one of the most serendipitously magical things that happened was as I was sitting on a train on the way back down to London or Oxford on my last day in my last full day in England. And I sat next to a guy, a young guy, and one of the first things that he said to me was that one of the people that he would like to find out more about or learn more of their work is this guy named Jean Piaget. And like Jean Piaget is a sort of you know, a scion in the world of early childhood development and of human development. And I was like, what? Are you seriously telling me that I'm sitting next to someone who who even knows the name Jean Piaget, never mind wants to have a really, an animated and delightful conversation in which Jean Piaget's teachings are a part of that. I was like, you can't make this stuff up. This is absolutely incredible. And so anyway, I've always loved connections, language, why, and the reason I bring that gentleman up, that young man up that I was with on the train is because he asked me, he was curious about why babies learn to talk. Like, why do they say words? And I think what he was really was like, how do you teach a baby to talk? And of course, the answer is, babies are very, very, very motivated to learn how to talk because they're people and they want to be connected with other people and they want things, right? I can remember our our younger child, his first word was ball because he wanted the ball that was out of his reach and he wanted to be able to have it. And he was very motivated to ask for that ball. And he was born 4 years after our older son was born, or yes, 4 years. And so what would happen is he was very often spoken for. Like he didn't have to use his words as often as his big brother had, because his big brother was there to speak for him and very often knew exactly what was in his little brother's heart or, mind. And So he must have really, really wanted that ball because there was no older brother around to try and get it for him and advocate for him. Um, and so I think the reason I wanted to bring all that into today's conversation is because human dynamics and the reasoning behind why we do what we do, why we say what we say, why we think what we think is um, is deeply embedded in our makeup. And unless we are looking for it, we might not know that. We can, if there's one thing that growing up and living in this society has taught me, it's that you can operate. I did operate on a very low level of awareness. And once I was able to open up to that awareness, my life got much, 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 much richer and more enjoyable, more peaceful. And as I'm saying that, all that seems like an awfully big ask, in the lead up to the holiday season, in the lead up to the end of the year. And so if none of that resonates, it's really okay. You don't have to take this in any other way than it feels good to take it. I think I wanted to share about all that because I wish to communicate that I've got an understanding of human development and human dynamics that goes beyond what a lot of people have. And it's in that spirit that I developed these two laws, my laws of human dynamics. In fact, I called them my universal laws. They're K's universal laws of human dynamics. And I'm going to share them with you. And the invitation is to, if you can, keep them in mind, keep them in your back pocket over these weeks and months coming up. And and just if you can be curious about why someone is doing something that uh, they're doing, even if you don't like it or if it makes you uncomfortable or upset, or why you yourself might be doing something that you don't understand that makes you uncomfortable or upset. Um, that perhaps looking through the lens of these will help in some way. And I've been sharing about these kind of quietly, and in fact, I shared with a coaching client this week of mine, and they were so appreciative of a different lens to look through the behavior of a loved one that they were not understanding. And well, actually, I don't. That doesn't give them enough credit. That they're understanding, and I've been so admiring of this human being working towards what they're working for themselves, and also learning to give themselves grace and others grace around them. It's been absolutely incredibly inspiring. And anyway, when I shared about these laws, um, they were like, "Wow, that's really interesting. Like that makes a lot of sense." So, and in fact, I think what I will do is I'll share about, well, I'll just share the first one, and then we'll see where we are. So Kay's first universal law of human dynamics is thus: people always express out into the world that which they themselves most wish to receive. Right? I'll say it again. People always express out into the world that which they themselves most wish to receive. And I'm going to use myself as an example. Um, if I look at my behavior at its best over even just the last week, I see that what I've been expressing out into the world is like if I think about interactions or how I've spent my time, when I when I'm motivated to talk or listen to someone, the communities I've I've been a part of in this week, I see that there's a lot of times when I have expressed out into the world that which I myself would most wish to receive, peace, humor, warmth, joy, silliness, um, music, dancing, you know, uh, just enjoyable. I was stacking wood the other day, so we've got some cordwood here. One of my favorite sort of autumn activities, or usually we get the wood in the spring. So one of my favorite shoulder season activities is to stack wood because then it's all ready for our wood stove in winter. And I was stacking wood yesterday, singing the song "All Night" by Lionel Richie. And, like there's a million lines in that song that are so exactly that were so exactly in that moment of singing and dancing for me, or singing and movement, what I wished to receive back. And I'm just trying to think of like, um, so the first lines are, "Well, my friends, the time has come to raise the roof and have some fun." Uh, Something like, "Go away, the work to be done. Let the music play on." And that was how I was feeling as I was stacking wood. So that was an example of me literally singing out and expressing that which I most wished to receive in that moment. Fun. And I did receive it because like I love stacking cordwood and I love singing. So that's one really good example of my first universal law of human dynamics. People are always expressing out into the world that which they most wish to receive themselves. And so if I place myself back into this conversation, this particular conversation with this coaching client, it was so interesting because I shared that, and they understood it. And then immediately what they said was, but wait a minute, because this person that we've been talking about was totally not expressing that at all. Like it was not that. And I was like so excited because what they did, what my coaching client did, was they anticipated um, the second universal law of human dynamics that I have created. Uh, and so I'll read that one. Kay's second universal law of human dynamics. Here it is. When caught up in thoughts or afraid that they will not receive that which they most wish to receive, people express out into the world the exact opposite of that which they most wish to receive. And I'll read it again. Kay's second universal law of human dynamics. When caught up in thoughts or afraid that they will not receive that which they most wish to receive, people express out into the world the exact opposite of that which they most wish to receive. And if you think about that for a minute, um, it's worded the way that it is because when we're caught up in thoughts or afraid that we're not going to receive that which we wish to receive, we don't, there's a whole massive range of negative human emotions and behaviors. But what we are giving out in those moments is the exact opposite and no other of this huge range of human emotions and behaviors. It's the opposite of what we wish to receive. Um, and if I think about, let me think of a good example of that for myself. Right. Okay. So I used to not be able to advocate for myself. Um, I used to not even give myself the permission to like wish for the freedom to go fly to England and take 3 weeks to walk across the most rugged, beautiful parts of it. Um, and what I did was I tried to get that for other people. Like I tried to express out into the world what I wanted by trying to make it happen for other people, which if I think about like for example my kids, um, there's actually an even better example that I do have permission to share. So earlier I would say it was late 2020. I was hospitalized for the second time with diverticulitis. The first time I was diagnosed with diverticulitis, or the first time I developed diverticulitis, which is an intestinal disease that I will let you look up yourself. It's something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Not that I have enemies these days, but there is that expression. The first time I took a needed medication for it, which is antibiotics, that caused the tendon condition that I now live with. So I needed a wheelchair for a lot of 2011 and 2012. It took me uh, it took me 2.5 years. Yes, 2.5 years to regain my leg strength back to the point where I could do what I wanted to do, which was to ski. That was my North Star while I was relearning how to walk. I still today live with hands that do not operate like other hands. They fatigue rather quickly, and what it means is that I have about 50% of a typical person's hand use on a good day. And so I need to be very careful about the choices that I make with my hand usage and strength. And I'm so grateful for that because there was a time when I had almost actually no use of my hands for a long time, from early 2014 for months, maybe even a year or more. I had very, very little use of my hands, and that sucked. That sucked ass. So when I got diverticulitis again, towards the end of 2020, which if you put yourself back in 2020, it was a really challenging time to be alive and trying to support not just family, but at the time I was running a community for parents of young children, and I was trying to sort of do everything and be everything for them. I was getting no sleep, no hydration, no nourishment from food, no exercise. It was just, I was incredibly stressed out like all the time. And so I ended up being admitted to the hospital that time. And then, of course, there was the PTSD of worrying that I might end up developing, or that it would worsen this hand, tendon condition that I live with, and there was just a lot. It was a lot, and there were conversations in the hospital about were we going to remove part of my large intestine because that was a possibility, and we decided not to. So that's good, and it really, if I look back now, I mean that was the impetus for having this show be what it is, for supporting people the way that I do, for working with the coaching clients that I work with in a way that is sustainable for me as well. I mean, right, we started the show off by saying, like, welcome to the show that is about supporting those who lead from the heart and show up for others to support ourselves and to receive love and care as much as we give it out, right? So it was in October of 2020 that I went back into the hospital. And when I got out, there were probably several weeks where you have to go through there's a whole protocol once you have had diverticulitis, once you've had that kind of, you have to let your intestines heal. And of course, you still have to eat, like still have to live. So it was very visceral at the time. And I remember somewhere in there, so maybe it's November or December of 2020, when my then, gosh, how old was Jay? So in 2020, I think he was probably 15 or 16, but I will say 15. He kind of swanned into the living room, munching on like a piece of white bread or something, and he was like, "Yep, this is all I have time for breakfast today." And I was so immersed in my own recovery and like not wanting him to end up getting diverticulitis, basically, that I like lost my mind. I was like, you are going to put that bread down and you were going to go into the kitchen and you were going to pull out, oh, I don't know, every ingredient, like cereals and things like that, until you find something that adds up to, I can't, till X amount of grams of fiber. And then you're going to eat that. And like, he was very angry and he felt very pushed down upon. Understandably so. And but he did go off into the kitchen to try and like make good on this and maybe about a minute later I was like, because I we'd been having the conversation or the altercation that we were having was in the living room. And I said, I called him back in and I said, Jay, I'm really sorry. I said, you don't like, I said, I've just been in the hospital for not eating well, which is why I tried to make you do that. And I'm very sorry. Please feel like you can eat whatever you want to eat. Like, I don't mean to be telling you what to do. And he said, I remember him saying like, well, thank you. And then he said, that makes me actually, maybe I will go in and see what else there is to eat. Um, and it ended up being kind of a light moment. And I felt very much connected with my child, whereas 5 seconds prior, I'd been so upset and worried for him. And anyway, the reason I bring it up here is because I was, in that moment, very much exhibiting the second universal law of human dynamics. Um, I was so having just had the experience of not feeling good or healthy, still, I would say, quite afraid that I wasn't going to receive good health. I was still kind of building that back for myself. What I did was I expressed out into the world the exact opposite of what I would want. Um, and what I knew worked, which is to say, like, I was wanting the freedom to feel well, to make choices that mattered to me, that were motivated from a place of nourishment and good health. And I was feeling the opposite of that. And what I did was I pushed my opposite feelings onto my son. That is the second universal law. And I loved the light bulb that went on in my client's head a week or so ago about, okay, well, I can be curious. So if I'm receiving what I can think of as, quote, the opposite of what this person in front of me would like to receive for themselves, what does that mean? Sometimes I'm not speaking specifically to this client or anyone in particular, but like if someone is exhibiting jealousy, what do they really want? Like, what do they want to receive? Perhaps what they want to receive is someone's um, real, earnest, loyal love. If someone is exhibiting frustration, and all the ways that that can show up, maybe what they're wishing for themselves is some peace. If someone is exhibiting exhaustion or tiredness, or maybe what they're most wishing for is to be rested. And so it's just, I don't know, I find that these two laws are very fun to play with, just in a noticing sense, of the behavior of those around me and also of my own behavior. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it today. Like, this is really the invitation that I have for you, is to get an understanding of these laws. The first one being, we always express out into the world that which we most want to receive ourselves, or the exact opposite of it. And as you're moving into your day, your year-end activities, your life, I would be curious what comes up and what you notice, both for yourself and for others. And I think the bolder of the invitations is to really be curious about what's going on inside ourselves. If you are feeling a little daunted at that, I just know that I'm here with you. I feel that, as I was on my retreat a couple weeks ago, and as I've been integrating back over these last few weeks, it's been so interesting to understand, like, what I will feel first is discombobulation, discomfort, and then if I can sit with that, I'll start to hear what my psyche wants, what this little girl inside me just really wants right now. And if I can listen through that, um, there's an insight there, or so often more than one, but there are insights there for me to gain about myself, where I am right now, what I most value right now, why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I and I and I would just be curious what comes up in you if you give yourself the permission to just notice with others in the world and notice within yourself. If you'd like to share with me, that would be amazing. If you happen to be receiving this into your inbox because you are an art, creativity, and well-being subscriber, where these land right into your inbox, just hit reply or share in the comments. I'd love to hear what this idea means for you. And even if you just want to, even if you just have a note taker on your phone or a journal or a place where you can, uh, you know, allow yourself to reflect and see what comes up for you, that would be amazing too. And even if this is just like a super fleeting learning that helps you in one moment of one day, it's enough, you know? It's valuable. And so are you. Hmm. Thank you for being here with me, for being along on the ride. Um, I've got a couple things to share now that we're here at the end of this episode. First of all, I am offering an art sale at my website. It started last Friday, the 14th of November. It's going out still a couple more weeks through Friday, the 5th of December. And you can use coupon code GRATEFUL 2025. That's all one word, and the word grateful is in all caps. Grateful 2025 to get 50% off your purchase over $200. More items are being added throughout the sale, and I'm even experimenting with prints of my art for the first time ever. So, if you'd like to add to your collection or enhance somebody else's with my art, visit klockculp.com/art. The link is in the show notes. I have been growing a group community in the School platform over these last few months. School is, I don't know why they did this because you have to spell it out every time, but School is spelled Skool. Um, yeah, it's a platform for people who want to be in communities, and mine is one of them. It's called Dreamers and Doers, the group that I've been creating. The people in this group, and I include myself in this, have been enjoying the community as a place to take a breath and be in good company and feel understood and loved. So important, and important especially at this time of year. Throughout this time of transformation in my own life, I've been especially grateful for the community. It's a place where we meet and connect each week in office hours, where there are vibrant forums where people, myself included, share and talk and connect, where I've been creating some really interesting courses. And it's just a special magical place. If that sounds like a space that you might appreciate and you'd like to learn more or join, visit skool.com/dreamers and doers. And again, school is spelled Skool, and the link is in the show notes. And if you'd like to become a subscriber to my newsletter, you'll receive this and future posts directly into your inbox, as well as you'll have access to all the newsletter archives, these podcast episodes, as well as other goodies. You can subscribe for free by going to klockculp.substack.com. And again, thank you for being here with me. I appreciate you. I appreciate your attention. I think of these as just you and me episodes, and it's a really lovely space, and I'm really glad to share it with you. Thanks so much. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. I look forward to when we are in company again. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.